Every now and then I read these articles that I get from the Sovereign. It's just sovereignman.com. But you can sign up for a free, newsletter thing. But he's got a podcast as well that he goes into more detail about what I'm about to read you. So in the description box of my video, there will be a link to this specific page on his website where if you want to reread what I'm about to read you, fine. Otherwise, you can also go there and click the podcast button, play the podcast, and see what in detail he talks about. But more unbelievable facts from the U.S. government's own financial reports. It's amazing that you can dig a little bit and find these numbers, but mainstream media usually don't dare talk about them. The jobless numbers were better than expected this year. Markets rally up, or this month, next month. Oh, revision. Double revision. And I was just reading something today, although I don't think I sent it to myself because I just didn't feel like it was worthy to read at this point. But I did notice, after a downward revision. Oh, no kidding. Markets don't care about that. Yesterday, I told you that the U.S. government had recently released its annual financial report to the public. And the numbers are pretty gruesome. For example, the government's net loss in fiscal year 2016 more than doubled from minus 467 billion, or half a trillion, to minus 1 trillion. Let me read that again to you. That is a massive, massive difference. The government's net loss in fiscal year 2016 more than doubled from minus 467 billion to minus 1 trillion. It's astonishing that anyone could manage to lose so much money, let alone in a year where devoid of major wars, recessions, financial crises, or infrastructure projects. But what else can we expect from an institution that spends billions of dollars to build a website? Obamacare, remember that one? Today I wanted to highlight a few other items from the government's report that are worth repeating. Number one, the federal government failed its own audit. Again, he says that's on page 37. Auditors have a bad reputation. People typically conflate auditor with the guys at the IRS who harass taxpayers. This isn't the case. Auditors actually work for you. Their job is to be an independent, objective set of eyes that go into a company on your behalf and review all the records to make sure that there's no fraud or deceit. Every year, big companies submit their financial statements to auditors for inspection. And auditors spend weeks doing their own studies to determine if those statements accurately reflect the company's true condition. Now, notice how when we hear about all these companies and banks and financial institutions, quarter four earnings are up. They did an accounting trick. First quarter earnings blew away what we expected. Thanks to a new accounting trick that was released just a few days ago. Notice how you don't hear, and verified by an independent auditor. No. Because you'd get the absolute worst case reversal on that one. The auditor said they don't even want to speak on public record because the books on JP Morgan and all the other banks are worse than terrible. They dare not even say it because it'll cause a worldwide market crash, according to the auditors. That's probably how that would go. In fact, our agricultural company is undergoing an audit right now by a large international accounting firm. It's important. Audits provide an independent assessment to the shareholders, indicating that everything we've said about the company is true. Needless to say, when a company fails its audit report, it's a big deal. That's what happened to the U.S. government. Now, I need to stop right here. Well, not yet. Give me a second, because I do have to interject on this one. As if I don't interject on everyone. Just stand by. The government submits its own financial statements each year to the Government Accountability Office, GAO, its in-house auditor. But the GAO gave the federal government a failing grade, yet again. and specifically singled out the Defense Department for serious financial management problems. Webbot said late last year, that the first part of 2017, we're going to see some real numbers finally coming out from government sources, things like that. Real numbers. Remember that one? I've mentioned this a few times now. Is this kind of what that is? Part of that? The GAO, we've got some numbers for you. The guy's got the statements. He's going to link it to you. It's in his podcast too. $500 billion, now a full trillion. You follow me? Real numbers coming out? Okay. Just had to throw that in there. A little shout out to the Webbot. If this were a private company, the senior executives would be out on the street and probably facing criminal charges. Number 2, the government's single biggest asset. And I've covered this before, by the way. And it boggled the mind more than anything else, I think, ever. And this reminded me of it because I haven't had to think about it so long. I completely forgot about it. But I know I've done videos now that I've seen this next line I'm about to read you. Number 2, the government's single biggest asset is $1 trillion in student loan debt. Oh my God. You're kidding me. That's not an asset. That's a stinking pile of crap. No. Remember the movie Elf? Okay, take a drink. Guess what that is? It tastes like a crappy cup of coffee. No, it's the world's greatest cup of coffee. I was right. It was the worst cup of coffee, right? That's what this is. No. That's not a stinking pile of unpayable student loan debt. That's a AAA grade asset. This is pretty sad. Like any large business or bank, the U.S. federal government holds a number of financial investments. Big banks, for example, have bonds, loans, and mortgages on their balance sheet. For borrowers and homeowners, a mortgage is a liability. We owe the bank the money. But to a bank, a loan is actually an asset. They've loaned the money, and they're the ones receiving interest payments each month from us. Of course, I'll go a step further on this one. What happens when people stop making payments on said mortgage and are foreclosed on, etc., etc., etc.? Oh, then that asset, while still called an asset because there's a house still there, it's not nearly as much of an asset as it purported to be because, like we saw, they owe this much on the house, but the house is now worth this much way down here. And the Federal Reserve had to step in and give them 100 cents on the dollar, remember? They wouldn't dare give them the fair market value down here. Nope, you're getting 100 cents on the dollar because we know you need that money worse than anybody else. So we're going to give it to you. We're going to buy those garbage assets, AAA assets off of you banks. The government also holds loans as financial assets, specifically student loans. As of September 30th, 2016, America's youth owed the federal government $953.6 billion from student loans. By the end of December, that number increased another $100 billion to $1.05 trillion. Now that's interesting because the numbers that I've been following seem to show student loan debt as being around 1.3 to 1.4 trillion. However, how can, as of September 30th, fiscal year and 2016, it be $953 billion, and then all of a sudden, by December, it's up $100 billion. Do you think for 1 second that $100 billion worth of student loans were just issued to new recruits, as in new young kids going to college? Do you think $100 billion in student loan debt was just created from the end of September, so November to December, 2 months, because we're going to go from November 1st to December 31st. In 2 months? Absolutely not. How is this possible? Accounting gimmicks. Put this over here, we report on it, done reporting, put it back over here, put that back over here. Okay, here's the real deal. Why can't we just get the real freaking numbers? But again, this shows the real numbers. when they do their little sleight of hand, and then when they're done, oh, add $100 billion on top of that. This constitutes the U.S. government's single biggest asset, even more than the aggregate value of their aircraft carriers or national parks. In other words, the government's most lucrative asset is the continued indentured servitude of young people in the land of the free. Number 3. Click here to listen on today's podcast. I'll explain how, based on the government's own numbers, their actual net worth is nearly minus $100 trillion. We'll debunk so many myths from the debt sheep who think it doesn't matter. And we'll discuss a very plausible scenario about how this could play out over the next few years, as well as some simple strategies to limit your exposure. Listen here. Do you have a plan B, etc.? Again, I'm going to link this video, this webpage in my video in the description section, so that if you want to hear this podcast, because I can't actually link the podcast, I have to link to the website, his website, and then you press play on this little link down here, or this little embedded player. So I wouldn't dare take him up on any kind of bet that says, oh, come on, it's not minus 100 trillion. That's absurd. Oh, yeah, no, it's not. Remember these assets? I wonder if the federal government considers, future Social Security an asset, or future Medicaid payments an asset, or future anything. Because if they can always show an asset, that's always better. So again, move something from over here to over there, release the official numbers, then we're done, put it back over here. No one wants to stare at that big pink elephant in the room. But anyways, this is why how is Trump going to pull us out of this? How is he possibly going to pull us out of this? This 2016 net loss, $500 billion. And they're already beating the war drums. Come on. What happens when we go to war? Massive money printing. Debt comes to a country near you. Has to be paid. So they're going to raise the debt ceiling again, raise it some more. This is going to be 2008-9 all over again. Just keep raising that debt ceiling until they can't. And that's around the time I expect some nice fireworks to show up. And also expect to cash out of my silver. Take care.